Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to continue to talk about the section 2 of chapter 2. Disputes over trade in goods. And section 2 talks about the case named, what's the case title? What's the short title of the case? China hyphen and, this is hyphen, this is dash. Okay, we can say this is the short dash. The dash, short dash. Short dash means hyphen. Okay, it's the short title of the case is called China hyphen what? Raw materials. Good. That's telling us the theme, the subject of the case is about the raw materials. Can you give me some examples of raw materials? Bauxite. What does bauxite mean? What does this stand for in chemistry? And this one? Yeah. This bauxite is some kind of earth, mainly composed of aluminum, and this one. I don't quite understand. I don't quite know how to say this. Later I will look it up. Okay. This is bauxite. And what does this mean? And bauxite and coke. Exactly. These together can be called raw materials. Then what's the difference between raw materials and rare earths? In section 3, there will be a case short titled China Rare Earths. What's the difference? Actually, I don't know the exact difference between these two. It seems they are similar to each other, right? Anyway, recently, the war between China and the United States, the trade war, has been escalated. How? The Department of Commerce of China decided to impose higher tariffs on the rare earths exported to all over the world. Have you been following this news recently? The tariff war, the trade war between China and the United States has now been escalating. Yeah. To everybody's surprise, we don't know why. Because as far as we know, the two sides are under negotiations, right? But all of a sudden, things seem to be getting worse. We don't know why. The fourth plenary session of the CPC is gonna take place in 4 days, right? And there will be maybe there will be some, huge changes to the power structure. I don't know, maybe. It just seems confused, or it's confusing. And the US President Donald Trump says he doesn't understand what was happening. But the issue is about rare earths, the export of rare earths. In the long run, in the long term, do you think China can stranglehold the Western countries in terms of rare earths? Currently, yes, but in the long term, maybe in 2 years or more, the United States and some other countries, for example, Australia or Japan, they are also developing their rare earths industry, right? Anyway, the WTO has already been left behind. Nobody is talking about WTO because the trade war between the two huge powers the conflict between the two has already paralyzed the WTO system. Like it or not, we are actually learning something out of date, maybe. Or we are learning something that seems meaningless. It's okay. But this WTO legal system has given us an exemplary. Do I have this word? Exemplary. No. It has demonstrated a model for international law. A model for international law. It has its own architecture of legal texts. I mean the sources. It has its own dispute settlement system. And this settlement mechanism has its teeth to bite. I mean, the rulings and recommendations issued by the DSB are legally binding. They are enforceable, right? Rather impressive. What else? Why would we say WTO system is a model for international law? Its sources are complete, and it has its own dispute settlement system, and the rulings can be enforced. And it can avoid the influence of sovereign states. It can, shake away all the influences imposed by sovereign states. Even in this legal system, what does this mean? This course, you're currently learning taught by Professor Li Jian, International Commercial Arbitration. This discipline is what kind of rules, what kind of law? Substantive, procedural, institutional. Have you learned anything about arbitration in the course of civil procedural law? I mean, foreign-related arbitration procedures in the civil procedural law taught by Zhou Haoren. Do you have any memory of that? What's the nature of procedural law? Procedural law. Of course, they are actually procedural rules, right? ICA, this course belongs to procedural rules, right? 程序规则呀，是不是？这其实是程序法。ICA. But in the context of WTO, we've got both substantive rules, procedural rules, and besides, we've also got institutional rules. Institutional rules. What does this mean? Substantive 是实体法 ，procedural 程序法。What does this mean? For example, I'll give you an example. If some of the WTO members would like to change the substantive rules, for example, the SEM or ADA would like to change the rules, the substantive rules, what kind of procedures do they need to follow? Or if there is a new member who would like to join the WTO, what's the voting rules? By a majority of what? 3/4, or half of the membership. These kind of things, I think you may be familiar with the, ownership of a company. Just like in what you've learned in company law. Yes, company law. Question is, does company law belong to substantive rules, procedural rules, or what? Taught by Professor Zhao Jinlong last year. What kind of rules does company law belong to? Yes, the ownership of different companies, right? And corporations, and the General Assembly. General Assembly, the directors, the supervisors, the executives, 董事会、监事会、理事会、股东大会。The membership of the WTO members And there is a general counsel, right? There are counsel for trading goods, counsel for trading services, counsel for IPRs, intellectual property rights. The organizational structure, something like company, right? Company law, right? And these kind of rules, we call them institutional rules. 组织规则. So that's why we say the WTO, and of course, it has its own organization structure. That's why we say WTO law can be described as a model of international law. There is a scholar in China named Yang Guohua in Tsinghua University. He upholds the idea that WTO law is the model international law. What's your opinion? Do you think WTO law constitutes a model for international law? Just like a student, a model student. How to say? Well, to some extent, you can say WTO law is a model for international law because comparatively it is better than other branches or divisions of international law. For example, public international law and environmental law, international environmental law, and what else? And international investment law. Do we have an organization in the field of international investment law similar to WTO? Actually, no. We've got an organization named ICSID, right? But ICSID is a specialized convention focusing on dispute settlement. But WTO law not limited to the dispute settlement. Dispute settlement is just Annex 2, right? We've got Annex 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, the substantive rules. It's a comprehensive. The WTO agreement is a comprehensive agreement. ICSID Convention is a treaty, is a convention specializing in dispute settlement. That's different. Okay. Now let's continue with this case. Raw materials. Pursuant to Article 6.2 of the DSU, the complainant must provide a brief summary of the legal basis of the complaint sufficient to present the problem clearly. Here. Provide a brief summary of the legal basis of the complaint, sufficient to present the problem clearly. This is the requirement. The complainant, however, failed to provide sufficiently clear linkages between the broad range of obligations contained in provisions of the covered agreements allegedly violated, and the 37 challenged measures. Therefore, the appellate body declared moot and of no legal effect the panel's findings regarding the complainant's panel requests. Again, let's review. What does panel request mean? What does panel request mean? Good. Can you say it in English? Panel request is a request by who? For what? Panel request is a request proposed or filed by the complainant for the establishment of a panel. Good. Is it a request made by the panel? No. The panel is the judge, right? Then, what does covered agreement mean? This is what I talked about last week. What does covered agreement mean? Again, another question. Is DSU one of the covered agreements? Have you checked it? Where can we find the appendix? I sent you the DSU this morning in the WeChat group. Have you checked the appendix? The appendix? In which appendix? Right now, everybody open the file and try to locate the appendix. Try to find the covered agreements. In which appendix can we find the covered agreements? In which? Which? Covered agreement. Have you found it yet? I mean, in the end of this document, there is an appendix. Find the appendix. There are so many appendix. Look, appendix 4. 3, working procedures. Let's get appendix 1. Yeah, appendix 1. What's the title of this appendix?
Agreements covered by the understanding.
Yes, agreements covered by the understanding, right? That's appendix 1. Appendix 1, yeah. Can you find A, agreement establishing the World Trade Organization? What's that? What's the short title for this agreement? B, multilateral trade agreements. Annex 1A, 1B, 1C. Annex 2, yes. Annex C, plurilateral trade agreements. Annex 4, yeah. Basically, all the annexes to the WTO agreement are covered by Annex 2 DSU. Is it clear? Okay. What's this supposed to tell us? Knowledge comes from practice. Even this small thing, you need to browse the document itself. Okay, we will go on to talk about look at this slide. Look, who's the Ye Leyi? Are you the team leader of group 2? Yes? Good. This is the second issue, okay? Paragraph 2, and this is the third issue. And this is the fourth one, the fifth one. Sixth one. You've got 6 members. Okay, a kind reminder. This is the 6th week of this semester. So our deadline is the 8th week. What's your assignments going so far? Have you finished it yet? You need to hurry up. Okay. There are only 2 weeks to go. I don't think these problems or issues are quite difficult. No, they are not difficult at all. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.很简单. This is, like a tent, often used by the English or American native speakers. Right? This is the number 1. Okay. Now let's continue to talk about the number 2, legal issue number 2. Question number 1, what is the nature of the challenged measures? What is the nature of the challenged measures? The second student will deal with this issue. What's the nature of the challenged issue? What's China's position? And what's the panel's position? And what's the appellate body's position? Look here. The challenged measures. What are the challenged measures? Restrictions on the export of raw materials. These are the challenged measures. I mean, what's the nature of these challenged measures? Look here. For the appellate body, the complainant's challenge in this case was not to specific annual duty or quota measures in isolation, or because it's not, so here we use or instead of and, or reviewed measure, or as China claimed, to ongoing conduct consisting of a chain of annually reviewed measures. Rather, the appellate body considered that the panel correctly described the object of the complainant's challenge as the legal situation prevailing in 2009. That is, to explain this legal situation prevailing in 2009, the series of measures, it's a series of measures pursuant to which China imposed export quotas and duties on the raw materials at issue at the time the panel was established. 翻译成中文的意思就是什么呢？被挑战和被质疑的措施不是孤立的特定的那一年采取的年度关税或关税配额，也不是中国所声称的一系列年度审查措施。相反，专家组认为，申诉方质疑的这个对象 the object 是2009年普遍存在的一种法律状况。也就是说，中国对相关原材料实施出口配额和关税的一系列措施，而上诉机构同意专家组的这个调查结果 findings. This is the second legal issue. We move on. The third issue is about what? There's a new concept appearing here, a new concept. It's called other appeals. Let's say there is in this dispute, there is a panel report issued, okay? There is a panel report issued right now. Then, one of the disputants is dissatisfied with the result of the panel report. Both the findings and the legal reasoning. The findings means 调查结果. The legal reasoning in this panel report, one of the parties is dissatisfied with either the findings or the legal reasoning of this panel report. What can this party do? It can appeal, right? Appeal. Appeal to what? To which body? Appellate body. Then there will be some new identities for the two parties. 身份就变了。Then the party who appeals would be called what? Yeah, 上诉人. In English, it's called no. appellant. Then what's the 被上诉人 in English? Appellee, appellant, appellee. Guess who would be the appellant? The losing party or the winning party? If you won, would you like to appeal? If you won, of course, the losing party, right? Good. The losing party would be the appellant. The winning party would be the appellee. Good. Then, the appellee is the winning party or the losing party? Yeah, the winning party, winning. Okay. The winning party is too anxious after the appeal. Oh. What if I lose in the appeal? Right? So, this winning party, the appellee, decides to take some actions. What kind of action? Look. Other appeal. Who is the appellant of the other appeal? Got it? It's becoming complex. Okay, I will explain it by words. The appellant in the other appeal is the appellee in the appeal. The appellee, how to read it? How, yeah. The appellee in the other appeal is the appellant in the appeal. Okay? They exchanged their positions. Yeah. Because, this is the name of the original appeal. While this is the second layer of appeal. It's called, look, with quotation marks, other appeal. Special terms, 专有名词, other appeal means the second layer of appeal. Okay? Look, conditional other appeals. What does conditional mean? Yes? Conditional means, in Chinese it's called 有条件的, 附条件的, 其他上诉. But we've got a substitute word for other appeal. We can also call it cross appeal. Cross appeal. 交叉上诉，这不是交叉了吗？对吧？身份交叉了，交叉上诉。Okay, let's take a break of 5 minutes. We'll further elaborate on this next period.